Hi everyone, I'm Sharuth, and I'll be talking about our work titled Context is Environment with my advisor Stephanie Egelka and my wonderful mentors at Meta, David Lucas Paz and Karthik Huja. A key problem in AI research is to develop ML systems that can generalize across a range of testing and unseen environments. Given access to dataset D containing tuples X and Y, which are sampled independently from environment index EI, it has been shown that this indeed is a very challenging task, and ML models often plummet in performance when tested across a range of unseen distributions. So, to motivate our approach, I'll take a bit of a detour and talk about in context learning in large language models. So, consider two different prompts of you are talking to a teenager versus you are talking to a physics graduate, and the same question, that is, write a poem on gravitational fields. It's well known that a model such as ChatGPT will give two different responses to the same question just based on different context. So context can be thought of as a high dimensional, rich representation which corresponds to a task and allows us to amortize learning across a range of unseen prompts or unseen distributions. So this motivates our approach, which is called in-context risk minimization or ICRM. So given access to a set of training environments, we sample an environment at random and draw T unlabeled samples represented by X from it. We make these unlabeled samples into a sequence and pass them through an autoregressive model H, which directly predicts the task at hand. For example, classification, it'll directly predict the label Y. Then we minimize the expected loss at each of the context length. So the idea is that instead of training a predictor from X to Y, we instead train a predictor from X comma C to Y, where C is the context length. We also established theoretical guarantees for ICRM. All of the guarantees can be understood from this graph, which denotes test accuracy on the y-axis and context length or the number of test samples on the x-axis. So the first result shows that in the absence of any context, ICRMs behaves the same way as the global empirical risk minimization model, which pools data from all the training environments together and samples a data point at random during training. As the context goes to infinity and under some assumptions, we can show that ICRM zooms in on the locally optimal empirical risk minimizer of the test environment. Under some other assumptions on the graphical model, we can also show that ICRM's improvement with context is actually strictly monotonic in context length T. So even with one context sample, ICRM is bound to exhibit performance improvements as compared to the global ERM model. Coming to some of the results, for example, this data called Federated Extended MNIST, which contains characters and digits written by different users. Each user represents a given environment, and we look at the worst group test accuracy with increasing context length at test time. As shown from this graph, with increasing context, the model adapts to the given environment and improves in performance. And in this case, ICRM beats all other algorithms and all other baselines. ICRM also exhibits a very peculiar behavior on some other datasets, for example, Tiny ImageNet C, where each environment corresponds to a different corruption or a different type of noise. And in this case, ICRM shows performance gains even at zero context length. So just by training a model using context, the model can actually learn to be a better featureizer or to learn a better featureizer on the dataset and improve the predictions even in the absence of context. In our paper, we also show more results as to why this happens and whether these gains are just because of increasing the architecture size in case of ICRM. We also show that in the absence of these environment demarcation in the form of environment indices, how does ICRM perform and behave? And we have more ablations to understand what are the kind of features that ICRM is actually learning. So the key takeaways from this talk are that unlabeled data within a domain or an environment carry a lot of information which can help us amortize learning across environments and get rid of these baseless environment indices which just capture the demarcation across data. So context from an environment represented in the form of unlabeled data represents this high dimensional representation of an environment of a domain. An ICRM, that is the method that we propose, can learn in context about these environmental features merely by paying attention to unlabeled data as it arrives. So thank you so much for listening. Here's a link to our paper as well as our code base. Thanks a lot.